First contact in the desert. The New Mexico desert held many secrets, but Captain Marcus Rhodes never expected to find one quite like this. His night vision goggles painted the landscape in shades of green as he patrolled the perimeter of White Sands Missile Range, following up on unusual electromagnetic readings that had the brass worried about foreign surveillance. The midnight air carried a static charge that made the hair on his arms stand up. Whatever was causing the disturbance, it wasn't natural. Marcus checked his handheld scanner again, following the strengthening signal toward a cluster of rock formations. That's when he saw it, a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt, except it was 40 degrees out. The distortion collapsed with a soft pop, revealing a figure stumbling through what looked like rapidly dissipating smoke. Marcus raised his rifle instinctively, then lowered it as he processed what he was seeing. The figure was humanoid, but definitely not human, tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between deep purple and midnight blue in the darkness. She wore what appeared to be some kind of ceremonial armor, now damaged and sparking with residual energy. She took 2 unsteady steps forward before collapsing. Marcus rushed to catch her before she hit the ground, his training warring with his instincts. The alien woman's eyes fluttered open, all 3 of them revealing irises that glowed like amber. She spoke, her voice melodic but weak. "The Syndicate! They're coming." Marcus keyed his radio but hesitated. Protocol dictated immediate reporting of any extraterrestrial contact, but something in her voice, the fear and urgency, made him pause. "Who's coming? Who are you?" "I am Nyxis," she managed, her breathing labored. "Third princess of the stellar Concordat. They forced me to flee. The marriage contract would have given them control." She coughed, and Marcus noticed a spreading stain on her armor, not blood, but something that glowed faintly blue. "You need medical attention," Marcus said, already calculating his options. The nearest base medical facility was 20 minutes away, but they weren't equipped for alien physiology. Plus, if she was running from something, bringing her to a military installation might put everyone there at risk. "No facilities," Nyxis gasped, seeming to read his thoughts. "They'll track. Official channels need somewhere quiet." Her third eye fixed on him with surprising intensity. "You're different than I expected. Humans. Your profiles suggested primitive warriors, but I sense compassion." Marcus made his decision. "My cabin's 15 minutes from here. Off-grid, stocked with medical supplies. Not standard issue, but it's secure." He'd maintained the hidden retreat for years, paranoid about government overreach after some of the things he'd seen in special operations. Never thought it would come in handy quite like this. "Perfect," Nyxis whispered. Then her eyes rolled back and she lost consciousness. Marcus lifted her carefully. She was lighter than he expected despite her height, and headed for his hidden jeep. As he drove through the desert night, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just irrevocably changed. The stars seemed to shine brighter overhead, and he wondered how many of them held secrets like the one now sleeping in his passenger seat. The cabin was exactly as he'd left it, solar panels glinting in the starlight, surrounded by subtle security measures that would warn him of any approach. He carried Nyxis inside and laid her on the bed, then retrieved his enhanced medical kit, the one with experimental regenerative compounds he'd borrowed from a classified operation years ago. As he worked to treat her injuries, Nyxis drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about something called the Syndicate Convergence and quantum entanglement contracts. Marcus caught snippets about arranged marriages being used to bind royal houses at a quantum level, making treaties literally unbreakable by linking the parties at a subatomic scale. Dawn was breaking when Nyxis finally stabilized, her armor's self-repair systems beginning to function again. She opened all 3 eyes and looked at Marcus with new clarity. "You've saved my life," she said softly. "Among my people, such an act creates a bond that cannot be ignored." "I'm just doing what anyone would do," Marcus replied, though he knew that wasn't strictly true. Most would have followed protocol, called it in, probably started an interplanetary incident. "No," Nyxis said firmly, sitting up despite her injuries. "You chose to help me to trust your instincts over your orders. That makes you either very foolish or very wise." She smiled, revealing teeth that seemed to shimmer like opals. "I believe it's the latter." Before Marcus could respond, one of his perimeter alerts buzzed. Something was coming, something big enough to register on multiple sensors. Nyxis tensed, her armor emitting a soft hum. "They found me faster than I expected," she whispered. "Captain Marcus Rhodes, I must ask for your help once more. What's coming isn't just after me. They want to use my marriage to initiate a takeover of multiple star systems, including yours. Will you help me stop them?" Marcus checked his weapons and smiled grimly. "Princess, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership." Royal responsibilities. The desert sunrise painted the sky in shades of purple and gold as Marcus peered through his rifle scope at the approaching vehicles. 3 black SUVs snaked their way along the dirt road toward his cabin, their windows tinted beyond legal limits. Not military, their movement patterns screamed private security. "Your people?" he asked Nyxis, who stood beside him at the cabin's reinforced window, her armor now fully repaired and humming with energy. "No," she replied, her third eye glowing brighter with concentration. "Human vehicles, but I detect quantum signatures, syndicate collaborators." She turned to him, her expression grave. "There's something you need to understand before they arrive. The marriage contract they planned wasn't just political, it's technological. The syndicate has developed a way to use quantum entanglement to bind not just particles, but entire civilizations." Marcus kept his scope trained on the lead vehicle. "You mean literally?" "Yes, once the quantum marriage bond is established between 2 royal houses, their nations become linked at a fundamental level. Resources, military assets, even civilian populations can be controlled through the quantum network. It's how the syndicate has been quietly building their empire. And they chose you because Earth is in my house's designated expansion zone." Nyxis's voice carried both pride and bitterness. "My marriage to their chosen proxy would have given them backdoor access to your entire planet. My father doesn't understand. He thinks it's just a standard political alliance." The SUVs were getting closer. Marcus could now make out figures in tactical gear through the windshields. "How many collaborators do they have on Earth?" "More than you'd think. They've been preparing for decades, placing agents in key positions. Those men approaching, they're probably former special forces enhanced with syndicate tech." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "We should leave. My armor's stealth systems can shield us both." Marcus shook his head. "They'll just track us down again. Better to deal with them here on our terms." He glanced at her. "Unless you're not up for a fight." Nyxis's opal teeth gleamed in a fierce smile. "Captain Rhodes, you haven't seen me fight yet." Her armor shifted, plates realigning into a more aggressive configuration. "But we do this smart. I haven't survived 3 assassination attempts by being reckless." The vehicle stopped 200 yards from the cabin. 8 figures emerged, carrying what looked like standard tactical gear, but Marcus's trained eye caught the subtle differences: power cells where magazines should be, armor that seemed to ripple in the morning light. "Quantum-enhanced weapons," Nyxis confirmed. "They'll try to take me alive. The marriage contract requires my willing participation, even if that willingness is coerced. You, however—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. "Good thing I came prepared." Marcus pressed a button on his watch. Across the property, carefully hidden defense systems hummed to life, another souvenir from his special ops days. "Let's show them why forcing marriages went out of style centuries ago." The syndicate advanced with professional precision, but they weren't prepared for the combination of Earth guerrilla tactics and alien technology. Marcus's automated defenses forced them into cover, while Nyxis's armor allowed her to phase through solid matter, appearing behind their lines to wreak havoc. Marcus picked off 2 with careful shots, their enhanced armor useless against the experimental rounds he'd loaded. Nyxis moved like liquid shadow, her martial arts unlike anything he'd ever seen. When one attacker got too close, she executed a move that seemed to bend space itself, leaving him unconscious and his weapons quantum-locked into useless lumps of metal. "We need to question one of them," Nyxis called out as she disabled another attacker. "Find out how deep the syndicate's influence goes." Marcus spotted their opportunity, the team leader, hanging back, coordinating the assault. "Cover me," he shouted. then sprinted through the crossfire. Nyxus's armor projected some kind of energy field that deflected incoming fire, giving him the seconds he needed to reach his target. The leader was good. He nearly got his weapon up in time. But Marcus had trained with the best on Earth, and now he had something worth fighting for beyond just orders. The brief hand-to-hand exchange ended with the leader pinned, his quantum-enhanced strength useless against leverage and skill. "Stand down," Marcus shouted to the remaining attackers, "or your boss gets a first-hand demonstration of how we handle threats in the desert." The surviving Syndicate forces hesitated, then lowered their weapons. Nyxus approached, her armor reconfiguring to a less lethal stance. "Now," she said to their captive, "you're going to tell us everything about the Syndicate's operations on Earth, and then we're going to have a long conversation about the true meaning of consent, both personal and planetary." The leader glared but said nothing. Marcus applied slightly more pressure. "You heard the princess. Start talking, or we find out if quantum enhancement helps with pain tolerance." "You don't understand what you're interfering with," the man finally growled. "The Syndicate brings order to chaos, structure to primitive worlds. We're offering Earth a chance to skip centuries of development." "By turning us into quantum slaves?" Marcus asked. "By giving you guidance," the leader's facade cracked slightly. "Look at your world, war, poverty, environmental collapse. We can fix it all." "Through forced marriage and quantum bondage." Nyxus's voice was cold. "No, my people believe in earned trust and willing alliance. The Syndicate's way is just colonialism with better technology." The rising sun cast long shadows across the battlefield as Marcus and Nyxus secured their prisoners. But both knew this was just the beginning. The Syndicate wouldn't stop coming, and now they had proof of collaborators within Earth's power structures. "You know what this means," Nyxus said quietly as they watched the desert wind erase traces of the fight. "We can't trust official channels. We're on our own." Marcus checked his ammunition and smiled. "Just how I like it. But first, Princess, you're going to teach me everything you know about quantum technology. If we're going to save both our worlds, I need to understand what we're really fighting." Nyxus's 3 eyes sparkled with something between amusement and admiration. "Careful what you wish for, Captain. My people's science might break your world's physics." "Good," Marcus replied. "I think some things need breaking before they can be fixed right." Hidden enemies. The abandoned quantum research facility outside of Denver looked innocent enough from the outside, just another failed tech startup's former headquarters. But as Marcus and Nyxus approached under cover of darkness, their captured Syndicate operatives' intel proved accurate. The building's security systems pulsed with alien energy signatures that only Nyxus's third eye could detect. "Their quantum network hub is in the sublevels," Nyxus whispered, her armor adapting to match the darkness. "From here, they've been identifying potential collaborators in Earth's governments, preparing for the full takeover." 2 weeks had passed since the desert fight, and they'd spent every moment preparing for this infiltration. Marcus had absorbed as much knowledge about quantum technology as his human brain could handle, while Nyxus had proven an eager student of Earth's military tactics. "Security looks heavier than our intel suggested," Marcus noted, counting the guards through his enhanced scope. "Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. They're running quantum sync protocols, aren't they?" "Yes," Nyxus sounded impressed. "Their neural patterns are linked, sharing awareness. Take one down and they all know." Her armor hummed softly as she accessed its deeper functions. "But that connection goes both ways if we can disrupt their quantum sync." "They all go down at once," Marcus smiled grimly. "Good thing we brought a quantum disruptor." The device in question was makeshift, alien technology jury-rigged with Earth components in Marcus's cabin. But Nyxus had assured him it would work, assuming they could get close enough to the hub. Thunder rolled overhead as storm clouds gathered, providing extra cover. Marcus checked his modified weapons one last time. The experimental rounds were now enhanced with Nyxus's quantum reactive material, capable of penetrating Syndicate shields. "Remember," Nyxus cautioned, "we need access to their database before we destroy the hub." My father needs proof of the syndicate's true intentions, or the marriage alliance will proceed with another princess. Marcus nodded, thinking of her younger sister next in line for the quantum binding. We'll get your proof, but first, he pulled out a small box. Insurance. Nyxus's 3 eyes widened as he opened it, revealing a delicate crystal that pulsed with inner light. A quantum resonance gem? Where did you? Your armor's repair systems produced it while you were healing. I had it modified. He held it out. If things go wrong in there, this will let us find each other across quantum space. No syndicate interference can block it. Nyxus took the gem with surprisingly gentle fingers. Marcus, do you understand what giving this means in my culture? Your armor's database was quite informative about Concordat customs. He met her gaze steadily. I know exactly what it means. Before she could respond, movement at the facility's entrance caught their attention. A convoy of black vehicles approached, the same type they'd encountered in the desert. But this time, the figure emerging from the lead car made Nyxus gasp. Vexther, she hissed, the Syndicate's chief quantum architect. He personally designed the marriage bond technology. Her armor rippled with barely contained emotion. He's the one who convinced my father this was the only way to prevent war between our peoples. Marcus studied the alien figure through his scope. Vexther looked almost human, save for the geometric patterns that seemed to shift across his skin like living circuits. Your father really believed Earth would attack your people. The Syndicate has been feeding both sides carefully crafted intelligence for decades. Nyxus's voice was bitter. Making Earth appear more aggressive than you are, while convincing my people that quantum bondage is a merciful alternative to war. Well then, Marcus chambered around, let's go show them what real Earth aggression looks like. Their entrance was silent and precise. Nyxus's armor allowed them to phase through exterior walls, while Marcus's modified tech kept them invisible to quantum scanners. They encountered their first real resistance 3 levels down. The quantum-synced guards moved as one, their weapons tracking empty air where Marcus and Nyxus had been milliseconds before. But the princess's combat training showed its worth. She moved like liquid shadow, her martial arts combining with quantum physics in ways that made Marcus's head spin. He wasn't idle either. Each shot from his modified rifle disrupted quantum fields, breaking neural links and leaving confusion in their wake. Together, they carved a path toward the central hub. But Vexther was waiting for them. The quantum architect stood before a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with multi-dimensional energy. Princess Nyxus, his voice resonated on multiple frequencies. Your resistance to destiny grows tiresome. The only destiny here is the one we choose, Nyxus replied, her armor shifting to combat mode. Your quantum bondage ends today. Vexther's geometric patterns flared. You understand nothing. The universe trends toward chaos. Only through quantum binding can we ensure lasting peace. His form began to blur, existing in multiple states simultaneously. If you will not be a willing bride, you will be a cautionary example. The attack came from every direction at once. Vexther's quantum state allowed him to exist at multiple points in space-time. But Marcus and Nyxus had trained for this, their movements synchronized by hours of practice, and something deeper neither had yet named. The Disruptor, Nyxus called out as she parried attacks from 3 different versions of Vexther. The hub's quantum field is interfering with the binding process. Marcus understood. He rolled under a quantum blast, came up firing, and sprinted toward the crystal structure. Vexther's multiple forms tried to intercept, but Nyxus was there, her own quantum abilities keeping him occupied. The Disruptor armed with a high-pitched whine. Marcus slammed it against the hub's surface and started the countdown. Time to go. You'll destroy everything, Vexther's voice echoed from multiple throats. Years of preparation. Good, Nyxus landed beside Marcus, her armor pulsing with power. Consider this my final answer to your proposal. The quantum resonance gem Marcus had given her flared to life, creating a protective bubble just as the Disruptor detonated. The hub's crystal structure shattered, taking Vexther's quantum projections with it. As the facility began to collapse, Marcus felt Nyxus's hand find his. "Hold on," she whispered. "This might feel strange." The world dissolved into quantum foam around them, but Marcus wasn't afraid. He knew, somehow, that they would reform exactly where they needed to be. Together. Warriors united. The quantum jump deposited Marcus and Nyxus in the heart of the stellar Concordat's capital ship, currently hidden in orbit behind Earth's moon. The massive vessel's crystalline corridors hummed with energy, but something felt wrong. The usual bustle of a royal flagship was absent, replaced by an eerie silence. The quantum disruption affected more than just the Earth facility, Nyxus said, her third eye scanning their surroundings. The backlash must have traveled through the network, the ships running on emergency power. Marcus checked his quantum-modified rifle, now synced to both their energy signatures. "Good thing we downloaded the Syndicate's files before blowing the hub. But why here? I thought we were heading to your father." "This ship holds the quantum core that powers the marriage bonds." Nyxus's armor shifted nervously, responding to her emotions. "Without it, we can't prove the Syndicate's tampering, and something's wrong, the security protocols are offline. That never happens." They moved through the ship's winding corridors, encountering no resistance. Emergency lights cast everything in a soft blue glow that made the crystalline walls look like flowing water. Marcus had studied the ship's layout from Nyxus's armor database, but seeing it in person was different. The alien architecture seemed to defy physics, spaces folding in on themselves in ways his human mind struggled to process. "Wait," Nyxus held up a hand, her armor's sensors pulsing. Life signs ahead, multiple signatures, but they're distorted. The grand chamber that housed the quantum core lay ahead. Its massive doors stood open, another bad sign. As they approached, voices echoed from within, including one that made Nyxus freeze. "Father." The High Commander of the Stellar Concordat stood before the quantum core, but he wasn't alone. Surrounding him were figures Marcus recognized from the Syndicate's files, the heads of every major quantum house that had agreed to their corrupt marriages. And standing directly behind the commander, geometric patterns shifting across his restored form, was Vexther. "My dear daughter," the commander's voice was wrong, resonating with quantum harmonics that shouldn't have been there. "You've arrived just in time to witness the culmination of centuries of planning." "He's quantum-bound," Nyxus whispered in horror. "They've already linked him to the network." Vexther smiled, his patterns pulsing. "Did you think that facility on Earth was our only hub? Your little act of sabotage merely accelerated our timeline. Now, instead of gradual integration through marriage bonds, we'll simply take direct control, starting with your father's fleet." Marcus raised his rifle, but Nyxus caught his arm. "The quantum binding goes both ways," she said. "Hurt any of them and the feedback could kill them all." "Clever girl," Vexther purred. "You always did understand quantum mechanics better than most. That's why we chose you first. The marriage wasn't just about Earth. Your natural abilities would have strengthened the entire network." "By turning me into a quantum battery," Nyxus's armor hummed with barely contained rage. "Using my people's gifts to power your control system." The commander spoke again, his words clearly not his own. "Order through unity, peace through quantum harmony. Your human has made you forget your duty, daughter, but we can still save you." Marcus analyzed the situation, his special ops training combining with everything he'd learned about quantum physics. The core pulsed behind the group, its crystal structure similar to the one they'd destroyed on Earth. But this one was larger, more complex, with energy patterns that reminded him of. "The resonance gem," he whispered to Nyxus. "It matches the core's frequency." Understanding flashed across all three of her eyes. The gem he'd given her wasn't just a cultural token. It was a key. Its structure, derived from her armor's repair systems, was pure Concordat technology, untainted by Syndicate manipulation. "I need a distraction," she breathed. Marcus grinned. "Distraction is my specialty." He stepped forward, lowering his rifle. "You know what I learned about quantum mechanics these past weeks? It's all about observation. Reality doesn't settle until someone looks at it." He began walking in a circle, drawing attention away from Nyxus. But who's really doing the observing in your network, the bound individuals, or the ones holding their quantum leashes? Vexther's patterns flickered with annoyance. Primitive philosophical questions from a primitive species. This is why Earth needs guidance. Your minds can barely grasp. Oh, I grasp plenty. Marcus's grin widened as he saw Nyxis slowly making her way around the chamber's edge. Like how quantum entanglement works, how particles mirror each other across space, how the observer effect can collapse wave functions, and most importantly, he raised his rifle again. How to really make a quantum bang. The shot wasn't aimed at any of the bound figures. Instead, it hit the chamber wall, the quantum-modified round creating a cascade of energy that rippled through the crystalline structure. Everyone's attention snapped to the disturbance, everyone except Nyxis, who had reached the core. The resonance gem flared to life in her hands as she pressed it into the core's surface. Pure, untainted quantum energy met corrupted networks, and the result was spectacular. The core's light shifted from sickly purple to brilliant blue, racing through the connections to every bound individual. The commander gasped as the syndicate's control shattered. Around the chamber, other quantum nobles stumbled as their false bonds broke. Vexther screamed, his geometric patterns fracturing as his network collapsed. "Impossible," he shrieked. "The quantum marriages were perfect, unbreakable." "You never understood," Nyxis said, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance of pure concordat power. "True bonds can't be forced. Real quantum entanglement, like real relationships, has to be chosen, has to be earned." She looked at Marcus. "Has to be built on trust." The gem's energy continued to spread through the ship, through the quantum network, reaching every forced bond the syndicate had created. But where their corruption had shattered, something new remained, the potential for genuine connection, freely chosen. Marcus crossed to Nyxis's side as her father and the other nobles recovered. "I guess this means the wedding's off." Her 3 eyes sparkled with something that might have been mischief. "The forced one, yes, but I seem to recall you already gave me a quantum resonance gem. In my culture, that's practically a proposal." Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The commander, now fully himself, straightened. Syndicate vessels decloaking, they're charging weapons. Marcus and Nyxis shared a look. They weren't done fighting yet, but now they faced their enemy together, their bond forged in choice rather than coercion. And that made all the difference. Choosing destiny. The Concordat flagship's bridge erupted into activity as syndicate warships emerged from quantum space. Through the crystalline viewports, Marcus counted at least 6 vessels, their hulls rippling with the same geometric patterns that had marked Vexther's skin. "They're targeting our quantum stabilizers," the commander announced, his voice now free of harmonic distortion. "Without them, we'll be pulled into their artificial quantum field." Nyxis's armor interfaced with the ship's systems, displaying tactical data across its surface. Their fleets arranged in a hexagonal pattern. They're trying to establish a forced quantum link with the entire ship. Marcus studied the enemy formation, years of tactical training combining with his new understanding of quantum mechanics. "Like a net," he mused. "But nets have holes." He turned to the commander. "Sir, your daughter taught me that quantum states aren't fixed until they're observed. What if we give them something unexpected to look at?" The commander's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. "The resonance cascade, but that would require—" "A willing quantum bond," Nyxis finished. She looked at Marcus, all 3 eyes glowing with intensity. "One formed by choice, not coercion." Marcus met her gaze, "Like the one we've been building since the desert." "Exactly." She held out her hand, the quantum resonance gem pulsing between them. "But it has to be now, and it has to be real, no turning back." Around them, the bridge crew worked frantically to maintain shields as the syndicate ships opened fire. Vexther, now in custody, laughed bitterly. "You can't possibly think a single willing bond could counter our entire network." "Watch us," Marcus said, taking Nyxis's hand. The resonance gem flared to life, responding to their combined intent. Marcus felt the quantum connection forming, not like the syndicate's harsh digital bindings, but like discovering a harmony that had always existed, waiting to be sung. Nyxus's third eye blazed as their consciousness synchronized, her knowledge of quantum science flowing into his tactical mind. Together, they saw the battlefield in all its dimensions, not just physical space, but quantum possibilities. The ship's weapons, Marcus said, their thoughts aligning. They're not just firing energy. They're firing potential, Nyxus finished. Every quantum state that could exist. All at once, they spoke in unison, turning to the commander. Permission to take weapons control. The commander, seeing something in their synchronized movement that must have reminded him of the Concordat's ancient legends, nodded. Granted, all crews support the quantum link. Marcus and Nyxus moved as one to the weapons console, their hands flying over the crystalline controls. The resonance gem's energy spread through the ship systems, pure and untainted. Where the Syndicate's network forced quantum states to collapse according to their will, this connection allowed for choice, for possibility. The flagship's quantum cannons charged with new energy. But instead of forcing a single outcome, they fired possibility itself, every path that could be chosen, every future that might unfold. The Syndicate ship's rigid quantum network tried to impose order on the chaos, to force the possibilities into their preferred pattern. But you can't cage quantum potential with classical limits. Their network, designed to control and constrain, began to buckle under the weight of infinite choice. Impossible, Vexter shouted from his restraints. You're violating every principle of quantum control. No, Nyxus said, her voice harmonizing with Marcus's. We're remembering what quantum mechanics really means: uncertainty, possibility, freedom to choose. The resonance cascade built to its peak. Where the Syndicate ships tried to force 6 futures into one, Marcus and Nyxus's willing bond opened the way for all futures to exist simultaneously. Their rigid quantum network, unable to adapt, began to fracture. All ships' emergency quantum shields, Vexter screamed into a hidden communicator. Contain the cascade. But it was too late. The Syndicate's carefully constructed quantum hierarchy shattered like crystal under sonic stress. Their ships, suddenly free from the network's control, tumbled in space as their crews regained their individual wills. Through their bond, Marcus felt Nyxus's fierce joy at the sight. Not victory through dominance, but freedom through choice. The resonance gem pulsed one final time, its energy spent in the cascade, but its connection remaining, a bridge built on trust rather than control. As the Syndicate fleet surrendered, the commander approached them. The quantum marriage contracts are nullified, he said formally, but it seems a new kind of bond has taken their place. He looked between them with newfound understanding, one that might teach us all something about the true nature of connection. Marcus and Nyxus's quantum link hummed with shared emotion. Earth and the Concordat don't need forced quantum marriages to maintain peace, Nyxus said. No, Marcus agreed. Just the willingness to see each other as equals, to choose cooperation over control. And perhaps, the commander added with what might have been a smile, to recognize that the strongest bonds are those we forge ourselves. He turned to the bridge crew. Send word to both our peoples. The age of quantum bondage is over. The age of quantum partnership has begun. As the crew rushed to comply, Marcus turned to Nyxus. Their quantum connection sang with possibilities, not a single forced future, but countless paths they could explore together. So, he said, think Earth is ready for its first quantum-linked ambassador. All 3 of her eyes sparkled. Only if the Concordat is ready for its first human quantum warrior. Around them, the stars seemed to shine brighter, each one a possibility waiting to be chosen. They had faced the darkness between worlds and emerged stronger, not through force or control, but through the most quantum principle of all, the power of choice. And that was just the beginning.